Let's talk about this. I want to bring in former acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. You and I have been perched since before last hour watching the president. What is your first take on his first words as president at the border with Mexico?
Well, I thought overall, Harris, the speech was a little confusing. It was meandering and in places contradictory. It was clear that the president really wasn't sure what he was talking about. He talked about a number of different programs that weren't accurate. He talked about gang violence in Central America as a basis to claim asylum. That's not true under U.S. law. I think that's important. He talked about continuing to process more illegal aliens into the country instead of actually solving the problem. He talked about parole in the Venezuelan program that started back in October. And yes, we may see fewer Venezuelans at the border, but guess what? The numbers continue to increase month after month after month. It's just different populations. And so applying this parole program, which I would say is not lawful to other populations, is still not going to solve the problem at the end of the day. And then, of course, he concluded with Title 42.
Yes.
This is an authority that he has said he doesn't like, that they are fighting in front of the Supreme Court, yet he's going to extend Title 42. So it's very unclear what the strategy is, what the long-term strategy is for the border. I think that speech raised more questions than answers.
How could it not? He hasn't had eyes or hands on this situation on his own, and the two people that he put in charge have been so woefully incompetent that it's almost laughable. And one of them he gave a setup to, the Homeland Secretary Mayorkas. Well, everybody's waiting to talk to him. No, I don't think anybody is. And the Vice President Kamala Harris, I mean, what has she done as the border czar? What a mess. So you extend Title 42, which he says he doesn't like. Did he tell us why he doesn't like it? Did he tell us what he'd like to see in its place? Does he know the difference between Titles 8 and 9?
Well, no, I don't think he does. I think what it shows you is that there is no comprehensive plan for that border. They do not have a border security strategy. They have a Title 42 strategy. By his own admission, will go away this year. So then what's the strategy after that? Why? I don't understand why they are now simply trying to come up with a strategy that they've been in this problem for over 24 or about 24 months now. And yet this feels like a solution here at the last minute that they've come up with in trying to figure that out. And Harris, he also mentioned Congress, and I've got to come back to this because this is a point that I think the viewers need to really understand. He keeps talking about Republicans or members of Congress won't help. What they are advocating for is amnesty. What he put forward at the beginning of his administration, of course, then he mentioned Senator Sinema and Senator Tillis. They are talking about amnesty for 3 million people. Someone needs to explain to me and others on how amnesty equals border security. The two have nothing to do with one another, and yet they are conflating the issue and somehow trying to convince the American people that if you give amnesty to 3 million people who have been here for years and years and years, that somehow that's going to stop 230,000 people coming here every month. It's disingenuous, it's dishonest, and I get fired up over that because it's not going to solve the issue.
Well, it's reflexively what a politician would do, point the finger to the other side. The problem is that the finger needs to go right in his own chest. I mean, it feels like 24 months ago, because it was 24 months ago that he flipped the switch on Trump-era policies. And look, no one is saying that they were perfect and that they were solving every problem, but we have so many more people in this country that we would have to hand amnesty to at some point because the floodgates have been opened for those 2 years.
Well, that's exactly right. You can talk about all these different programs that they're looking at, or you can actually just go back to what works. And obviously there's a number of programs that we put in place during the Trump administration, but we also built on programs from previous administrations that also worked. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can just go back to what actually works. And then to talk about this parole program, it's interesting because when you parole individuals into the country, you are not actually adjudicating any type of asylum claim. You are actually admitting that they have no basis for asylum, so therefore you have to parole them in. Otherwise, they would go through the asylum system and they would grant their protections through that process. So the Biden administration is admitting that these groups of individuals, whether it's Venezuelans, Cubans, Haitians, have no basis for asylum, so therefore they have to parole them into the U.S. It's not an honest conversation with the American people. I feel like they're trying to hide the ball in many circumstances here.
You feel that way because they are. That is a sleight of hand that you've just caught in mid-game. And it doesn't solve any of our problems when you stand at the border, and you know this, Chad. When you stand there and you see our men and women pulling little ones, families out of the water because that current is so vicious on the Rio Grande, and some of them don't make it, how does anything that the president said today address any of that? And then our guys taking their own lives, committing suicide with the Border Patrol because it's all too much. Didn't hear that either. Yeah. Chad Wolf, so great to get started with you this hour of Outnumbered. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.